After you hear the words, "you have herpes," your mind starts spinning with questions. You ask yourself things like, why did this happen to me? Did I ruin my life? Who's ever going to want me now? Or will I ever feel comfortable being intimate again? And in that moment, those questions feel real because they line up with everything you've heard about herpes. All the jokes, the stigma, and all the fear that comes along with it. And when that happens, it carries over into all areas of your life. How you see yourself, how you date, and how comfortable you just feel being yourself. But if the questions in your mind are built on fear and blame, then your life starts to feel smaller and more limited. It's not because the diagnosis defines you, it's because your mind will always look for answers that match the way you're asking questions. So in this episode, we're going to talk about how to change the questions you ask yourself and how those questions shape how you feel and how you navigate relationships and your life from this point forward. Because when you change the question you ask yourself, you change the direction your mind goes, and that shift changes everything. Hi, I'm Kat Dupree, and I help people to navigate life with herpes. Something that doesn't get talked about enough is what your mind immediately starts doing after your diagnosis. It forms patterns fast, it jumps to conclusions, and it makes assumptions about your future, your relationships, and what you think you can handle. And most of the time, you don't even notice it's happening because it becomes the new normal in your head. But this reaction shows up in ways that can affect your confidence and the way you make decisions. And when you understand it, it can make a real difference in how you feel day to day. And a lot comes from the questions your mind starts asking without you even realizing it. So my goal by the end of this episode is to help you to see what your mind is doing, how it programs you to believe certain stories, and to give you a few tools that help you to shift those patterns so your focus isn't stuck on limitations, but instead on what you want to create. Your brain answers whatever you ask it. It does this automatically. You ask a question, and your mind goes to work trying to prove it true. So when the question in your head sounds like, why did this happen to me? Or did I ruin my life by getting herpes? Your mind will start pulling up anything it can find that matches that narrative. Old memories, past rejection, things you read online, or comments you heard years ago. Not because you're being negative, but because your brain loves patterns and it loves confirming whatever it thinks you're looking for. After a diagnosis, most people don't even notice the questions they're asking themselves. They show up as quick thoughts like, why did I trust them? Why would anyone choose me now? What if someone finds out and everything falls apart? And these questions sound logical in the moment, but underneath them, there's an assumption. The assumption that something is wrong with you now, that your future is limited, or that you're working with less than everyone else's. And once that assumption is in place, your mind builds around it and it starts feeding you answers that just line up with it. That's why you can know the facts about herpes and still feel terrified. Because information doesn't automatically undo the questions your mind is asking at 2 a.m. And this is why the quality of your questions matter. Because they shape the direction your mind goes. They can open things up and move you forward, or they can shut everything down and lock you into the same story on repeat. During my healing journey, there came a point where I realized most of my mental energy was going toward everything I didn't want. Rejection, judgment, feeling exposed, or worrying that someone would walk away. And when your mind keeps repeating those kinds of thoughts, it keeps your attention locked on what could go wrong and pulls your focus away from anything that could actually go right. That's when I came across something called lofty questions. And once I understood how they worked, things started to change in a way that felt different from anything else that I had tried. Lofty questions are different from affirmations. You're not trying to convince yourself of something that's not true in the moment or forcing yourself to be positive. You're simply asking yourself a question that points your mind in a better direction. And right after you ask a question, your brain responds automatically, and it literally starts searching for answers without you even realizing it. So, when you ask unhelpful questions like, why am I such a mess? Or why doesn't anyone want me? Your mind will go looking for explanations and situations that match whatever you just asked. Not because those things are true, but because the brain is trying to answer the question you just asked it. But lofty questions, they work entirely differently. That's because you ask something that assumes strength, confidence, or emotional steadiness. And when you do that, your mind begins searching for everything that supports that version of you instead. They also bypass the resistance that usually comes with affirmations. For example, if you say, I am confident, your mind can push back because it looks at your current reality and says, no, you're not. But if you ask, why is confidence so natural for me now? Your mind leans in and starts working to answer that question for you and why it's true. Then you start noticing things you would have overlooked before. It changes what you pay attention to, and it also changes the way you respond to yourself. By the way, there's real psychology behind this. You see, your brain organizes your experience around whatever you focus on most. When you change the question, you change the direction in which your mind begins to look for answers. And eventually, your life starts to line up with where your mind is now going. Now, before you start using lofty questions, there are a few things you need to know that make them far more effective. Think of these as the setup that helps your mind actually respond to the question instead of brushing it off. First, lofty questions only work when they point your mind towards what you want, not what you're trying to avoid. Your subconscious doesn't do well with don't, stop, or why I'm not. So instead of focusing on the emotion you're trying to get away from, the question should point to the emotional state you want to be in. For example, why am I always in control of my life instead of why am I always feeling out of control? Second, start your questions with the word why. Beginning with why shifts your brain out of argument mode and into curiosity mode. If you simply make a statement such as, I feel calm, I am confident, I am enough, it's very common for your mind to push back with all the reasons why it isn't true. A question doesn't trigger that same resistance, and your brain leads towards answering it instead of debating it. Third, use words like always or at all times. Lofty questions are meant to become part of how you see yourself, not just something that applies for a moment or a single situation. Adding always or at all times signals that you're talking about a consistent emotional state. It also primes your mind to notice patterns, opportunities, and behaviors that match the emotional state you're asking about. And fourth, ask these questions from a calm and quiet place. Lofty questions work best when your mind isn't all over the place. So just take a moment to relax and allow your nervous system to calm down enough for the questions to sink in. Also, if you're into meditation, then this could be a great addition to your practice. So let's put these questions into practice. Here are 3 areas you can focus on that help me to shift my mindset after my diagnosis. 1. Questions about you. These focus on how you want to feel in your everyday life. Why is my life always unfolding in ways that work out for me? Why am I always able to learn something positive from any experience? Why am I surrounded by joy and happiness at all times? Or why is my life so great that it always exceeds my expectations? 2. Questions about relationships. These focus on what you want to experience in relationships. Why am I always surrounded by people I have a deep connection with? Why am I always so good at attracting people into my life that are perfect for me? Or why am I surrounded by people who love and respect me at all times? 3. Questions about attraction. These focus on what you want to attract into your life. Why do good things always show up for me so consistently? Why is my life always filled with the perfect opportunities? Or why do I always take action to create the life I've always wanted? When you use lofty questions consistently, you'll notice your mind starts moving in a better direction. You begin to think in ways that support you, and your attention naturally shifts towards what you want more of. Over time, you'll see yourself making choices that reflect more confidence, more clarity, and more possibility because you're working with your mind instead of against it. Lofty questions are simple, but they create real momentum. They help you build a different kind of focus, and that focus influences how you show up in your day, how you feel about yourself, and what you experience in life. And the more you practice them, the more you'll notice your life expanding in the direction you actually want to go. Well, that's all I have for today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you haven't subscribed yet, whether you're watching on YouTube or you happen to be listening on audio, be sure to do that so that you don't miss future episodes and to also check other ones out that you may not have heard yet. Also, if you want to stop navigating your condition alone, come join us at Herpes Wellness. Membership gives you access to a private online community with forums, chat rooms, and monthly live streams where you can ask questions, make friends, find love, and get support from people who truly get what you're going through. If you want support on the go, then you can download the Herpes Wellness app, available in both the App Store and Google Play. The links to our website and the app are in the description. And if you're concerned about privacy, we've got you totally covered. The app icon and push notifications say H Wellness. So if someone happens to see your screen, you won't disclose your status unintentionally. And if you're enjoying the podcast or if you have something you'd like to share, please let me know in the comments. I would love to hear from you. Thanks again for tuning in, and I will see you the next time on the Herpes Wellness Podcast. Bye for now.